smart study plans, proven listening and reading techniques, writing like a pro, speaking with confidence, and top tips to hit your target band score. To help us do that is our one and only Ielts facilitator, Mr. Joseph Osei Bunsu. Let's get started, and I hope you enjoy every bit of this session. Thank you so much. Joseph, could you please hit the ground running? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. Okay, my name is Joseph Osai or Joseph. I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. Please, can you hear me clearly? Hi, is the feed okay? Please, can you hear me?
Joseph, yes, please, we can. We can hear you.
No. Okay, all right. So let me rectify, continue with what I was saying. Okay, so I'm back. Welcome once again, my of IELTS at Casa de Lengua. And tonight's topic is crack the IELTS top strategies to boost your band score. What are these you through focus strategies that will truly work? And I'll be your guide for the next 45 to 60 minutes. Okay, now let's dive in. We have about 5 things we're going to look at today. We have smart study plans, and we are going to look at how you're going to structure your IELTS plans effectively. Then we'll explore to proven listening and reading techniques. That's what will help you succeed in listening and reading. And we'll move into writing, and we'll also show you how to write like a pro. Then we'll move on to speaking, and we'll show you how to follow the right speaking tips and speak like a pro with confidence during your exams. And also, the last thing we are going to look at is the the top five band score strategies that we are going to take you through to build your band score. Okay, let's start with what we have on the list. The first item we have on the list, that is the smart study plans. Right. Now, we are starting with this because your preparation is just as important as your test day performance. And so if you're able to prepare very well, you'll be able to ace the IELTS test with ease. Now, if you're able to prepare under very tight examination conditions for how long you may prepare, if it's 2 weeks, if it's a month, if it's 6 weeks or 8 weeks, that is 2 months, you are just building yourself for the examination day. And if you're able to do that with the right strategies, you would just ace the IELTS with a very good band score, like band 8 or even band 9. That's the highest band score. So first of all, you have to take a diagnostic test, and this will show you where you are. If you are strong in reading but weak in writing, you need to do that and also focus on your weak areas. So here's a case. I am taking a student at the moment, a test taker at the moment, and she's very strong in reading. Now, whenever we have reading on our timetable when we're about to start a class or a lesson with reading, she looks very happy. She looks very okay, and she beams with confidence. But then when we get to her weakest competence, that is writing, that is when normally she has an issue with. She will look very down and all that. So sometimes I tend to ask her why when we get to writing, she's always down and a bit slow. So I asked her, and she said for reading, she's very much okay with reading because she's been getting higher marks when I give her the, how do you call it, practical test to do. But when it gets to writing, since she's not really good at writing, she looks, her confidence level is low. So I decided to now, if we have 2 hours for reading in a day, I decided to just do an hour for reading and rather focus on writing for 3 hours. So 1 hour for reading, 3 hours for writing, just so we focus on her weak competence, that is writing. So if you are preparing yourself for the IELTS, you should rather focus on your weak link or your weak competence, and rather ignore the ones you're already good at, because you feel you've been getting a higher score or a higher band score in it when you're preparing. If you don't really focus on the weakest competence or your weakest link, it's really going to, or is going to affect you, and it's going to influence the mark you're going to get in your exam. I mean, on the examination day. And you see, IELTS is such a way that each and every competence is important, because if you get a weak or a lower score in a competence like writing, and if you get a higher score in a competence like reading, let's say you had band 5 or 4 in writing and you had band 8 or even 9 in reading, that is 40 over 40, you would still not get a very higher band score. Why? Because the lower band score will tend to affect the higher band score when the average is being calculated. So each and every competence, that is the reading, the writing, listening, and speaking, each and every competence is as important as what you know. So when you're preparing, you should be able to focus on all competencies. I mean, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Right. And let's move on to how do you call it? The next, I mean, part, that is create a weekly prep schedule. Now, if you're able to do this, it's really going to help you, especially for professionals. If you are able to create a weekly prep schedule and you have at least 2 hours per day just to learn IELTS, it's really going to help you. Because if you're a professional and you have your, I mean, 9 to 5 work hours in a day, by the time you leave home and by the time you get home, you'll be tired. But if you're able to set a time for yourself, I mean, a timetable for yourself, and plan ahead, and how do you call it? Plan your weekly schedule that within the week, I'm going to learn IELTS maybe 5 times in a week, maybe Mondays to Fridays, and weekends. I'll just use weekends to do whatever I want to do. It's really going to help you. If you don't have a weekly plan schedule or a weekly prep schedule, and you prepare for the IELTS whenever you feel like preparing, is really going to help disturb you on the exam day. And now you have to practice under exam conditions, strict exam conditions. Now, if you practice under strict exam conditions, is going to help you on the examination day. Why am I saying this? If you have just 40 minutes to answer about, you have, let's say you have 60 minutes to answer 40 questions, and you rather give yourself 60 minutes to answer 60 questions instead of the 40 minutes, sorry, instead of the 40 minutes or the lesser time you're going to give yourself, you're supposed to give yourself, so you'll be able to be very ready. And for the examination day, you're going to worry yourself, you're going to put yourself in a very tight corner on the examination day, because IELTS deals with time, and time management is very important when it comes to IELTS. And so if you have 60 minutes for 40 questions, you should be able to practice in that specific period of time. Right, it's very important. So for example, you have an hour, that's 60 minutes for 40 questions in reading, and you have 3 tests. Even when the time is up, you set time for yourself. When the time is up, you should stop, and you should mark yourself according to the marking scheme that you have. Now you look out for the areas where you couldn't finish. You go back and ask yourself what happened, and now you try to rectify those issues or the challenges you had. Now the last thing on the last item on this slide is use official materials and trusted sources, and that is very important. You should be able to use official materials and trusted sources. You don't just jump onto any YouTube video you come across and just use it as your steady, how do you call it? Steady resource. You should rather focus on resources, steady resources like the ones we have from the British Council, IDP, or the ones we have here at Casa de Lengua. Let's move on to the next slides. Now let's look at how we can, I mean, have a very good band score when it comes to the listening competence, and it's very important. Okay, so when it comes to listening competence during the examination, you always have to read the instructions carefully. For example, if the instruction says no more than two words, don't write three. In this case, even if you write three words and all the three words are correct, you'll be marked down because you should be able to pay attention, or you should pay attention to the instructions. And I also do not joke with instructions. If they are saying no more with no more than two words, with no more than two words, maximum two words. If you write three words, you're going to be marked down. And it's very important when it comes to IELTS. Even if all the three words you wrote, the answers are correct, you'll be marked down. And you are supposed to pause. You should use a pause time to predict answers. Now, when the audio is playing, mind you, the audio plays once. It plays once during the IELTS listening. I mean, um, listening period, right? It plays once, and so during the audio time, we have pauses in these audios. Sometimes they pause for some few seconds just so you go over the answers you have before they move on to the next session. You should be able to use your pause time very effective. Now you should be able to use your pause time to predict the answers, right? If you have already answered maybe the first session and they have a pause time for you to go through the next session, the next set of questions, you should be able to use that pause time to predict the answers. If you're going through the questions, you should ask yourself what the question is demanding. Is the question demanding a number? Is it demanding the name of a place? Is it demanding a name of a person? And now you have the prediction right at the back of your mind. When you're listening to the audio, you don't pay attention to, how do you call it? What is not, you don't pay attention to anything apart from what you've already predicted. And so if you're predicting a figure or a number, when you hear something like a name of a place, a name of a person, you don't pay attention to. You're rather paying attention to, the flow. And when you immediately gets to where a number is mentioned, you you don't lose focus. You rather compare if that is what the question is demanding of you, and it's very important. Now, if you're able to do that, you should also be careful of distractors. And here, the speaker might even say one thing and correct themselves. Now, if the speaker is saying, maybe I mean, you should meet me at 5 a.m., and the speaker goes back to say, sorry, let's do it at 6 a.m. You may rather you may end up writing 5 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. And it's very important. You may end up writing 6 a.m., sorry, instead of 5 a.m. because the speaker initially said, let's meet at 5 a.m. He later corrected himself and said 6 a.m. So when this, question is being popped up in the multiple choice type of question, they will give you answers that have all the possible answers in it. They will give you answers, maybe A is 5, B is 6, C is 7, and maybe D is maybe 6:30 a.m. Now, if you don't take your time, you are going to choose the wrong answer instead of the right answer. That is 6 a.m. And so you should be careful of distractors. they tend to do that a lot in the IELTS listening test. And in this case, I'm talking about both right academic and general training and even UKVI, because for IELTS listening, it goes for both all types of the IELTS, both the academic and general training. We have just one listening test for all types. Okay, let's look at what we are supposed to do. We have to also practice spelling and numbers. It's very important. If we are supposed to write 6,335, you should know when the comma comes. You should be practicing that during your prep period before you take the exam. It's very important. And also, you should be able to practice a lot of spellings. It's very important. Very, very important. Because for IELTS, when you try to spell a word and you get it wrong, automatically your answer is wrong. That is one fact, but then it's very hard to accept. If you're spelling something and your answer is the spelling is wrong, your answer is being marked wrong. So if it's important you practice spelling a lot. And if you're taking the paper-based test, make sure you transfer your answers accurately. One mistake in transferring could cost you marks. Is very important. Very, very important. If you are taking a paper-based test, for the computer-based test, you just select your answers or you type them, and that is all. You don't have any other chance to transfer your answers. For the paper-based test, they give you a minute for you to transfer your answers from the rough sheet to the actual answer sheet. And so, if you are doing that, you should take your time and do it and make sure it's very accurate. Your answers that you are transferring onto your answer sheet is very, very accurate. And let's look at proven reading techniques. Proven reading techniques. Okay. For reading, I mean in IELTS, time is your enemy here. So you must read with purpose. Why am I saying this? You don't just read each and every line because you have about three tests to tackle in the reading test. And so you don't just read every each and every line, or you don't pay attention to each and every word in all the three passages or the three tests. You rather pay attention to the main idea, specific information in the passages or the three passages that you are being given. And how do you do that? You do that by skimming and scanning. And so if you are looking out for the main idea, you skim, and if you're looking for specific information, you scan. This skimming and scanning is a very solid and a very good technique when it comes to IELTS reading. If you don't know how to skim, if you don't know how to scan, I'm sorry to tell you this, your chance of getting a very higher band score, a good band score when it comes to IELTS reading is very low. If you don't know how to skim and scan, they work hand in hand and they are very important when it comes to IELTS reading. And so if you're able to skim very well for the main idea, to get a main idea of the passage, and if you're able to also scan for specific information, you are very close to attaining a very good band score in IELTS reading. And so you start with skimming, you quickly read for the main idea of the passage, then you use scanning to find keywords that match the question. So if you have practice time management, you are supposed to practice time management. If it's 60 minutes, three passages in the exam, that is 20 minutes per passage maximum. You're supposed to use that time frame also to prepare yourself for the to prepare yourself prior to the examination, because it's 60 minutes for three passages, that is 20 minutes maximum. Normally you're not supposed to spend 20 minutes on each passage because you're supposed to have about 5 to 10 minutes additional time for you to be able to go through your answers, right? So if you spend maximum 20 minutes on each and every passage, by the time you're done, you have no additional minutes to go through your answers to see, or to proofread your answers to see if you have petty mistakes that you are supposed to correct. And so you practice time management. You can even practice under strict time conditions here. So if you have 60 minutes for three passages, you can rather time yourself for 50 minutes, right? Spend 50 minutes to practice. When you are practicing for the reading skills, 50 minutes for three passages, If you're able to do that and do that very well and answer the questions effectively, you realize that during the exam now you've been practicing for 50 minutes, and the exam you have 60 minutes. You have 10 minutes additional time to go through your answers, and this is very important, right? So you have to learn how to eliminate wrong options. It's very important. If you're able to do this, this narrows your choices and makes easier to guess correctly if needed, right? So you have to watch out for tricky questions like true or false or not given. If you don't see the information, it's not given, not true or false, right? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. How to write like a pro. How to write like a pro, writing like a pro. Okay, so here we have um academic IELTS. We have two tax, academic IELTS tax one and tax two, and it's very similar in general training and also UKVI academic and general training. So writing is where many candidates struggle, right? And but you can master it with structure. Writing is where many candidates struggle, and I even gave an earlier, example that the student I'm taking now fumbles when it comes to the writing competence, but then she's a very good at reading and listening. But writing is where she fumbles because she's always complaining about tax one. That is where we have the visuals, the graph, the pie chart, the line graph, and you are supposed to write an overview on it. You're supposed to write introduction, and also you delve into the details of it. Many test takers find this very difficult and challenging, but then you'll be able to ace it with ease if you have a structure, right? You'll be able to ace it with ease if you have a structure. Now let's look at the structure. You have an introduction, you have an overview, and you have details, right? For that tax one, normally that's how it comes in. You have a visual like a pie chart, a bar graph, a line graph, or even a table, and you are supposed to write a report on this visual they have given you. So first of all, you start with your introduction, you prepare your overview, and you prepare your details. It is very important. Okay, so if you have these three sections that you're supposed to write on, you structure them very well. Introduction, what am I supposed to write? What do I see in this visual? What is the question talking about? Normally the questions tend to describe the visuals they've given you. So that really helps you when it comes to your introduction. Then you delve into the overview, which you is more or less like a continuation of the introduction. Then into the details where you report all the key features in the data being presented in the tax one. Now, tax two, you have an essay, the normal essay writing we know, which has an introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion. And one thing, you always have to plan before you write. Even if you have 3 minutes of planning, it can improve your writing quality. It is very important. So you use linking words like however, therefore, in contrast, additionally, to connect ideas. That is when you're writing an essay. If it's a letter writing for general training, maybe a letter writing to your boss or whoever you're working with, a work colleague or whosoever the questions demands of you to write to, right? And if it is, how do you call it, an argumentative essay, you should still be able to employ this, I mean, connecting words or connecting phrases. And you should avoid using or repeating the same words. You should be able to have, I mean, a wide range of vocabulary. If you should have varied vocabulary. That you should not be repeating the same word throughout your essay. If you say a different way, if you say a word in the first paragraph, in the second paragraph, you can put it in a different way. If it's a phrase, you can put it in a different way. It helps you build you for a very higher band score. And lastly, you should be able to proofread at the end before submitting your answer. It is very important. You don't forget to do that. You do that in your last minute when you're done. writing, preparing your essay in your hand and writing. The final minutes you have at your end or to your hand. Maybe if you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you quickly proofread all the essays you've written, and you check out if there are any errors before submitting. And so this all boils down to what I was saying earlier on, that if you're able to plan under very strict conditions, examination conditions. And so if let's say if you have 40 minutes, right, for written, IELTS written, sorry, writing. If you have 40 minutes, you should rather prepare yourself. When you're preparing yourself, you should rather time yourself in 30 minutes. So when it gets to the examination time or period, and you're writing the examination, and you feel you're overwhelmed, since you've been able to, or since you've been practicing 30 minutes, even if the question is a bit challenging, you still have additional adequate time to be able to write a very good essay, and a complete one, of course. All right. Now let's move on to the next slide. Speaking with confidence. Speaking with confidence. Right. Now, here, this part is sometimes a bit challenging. Why am I saying this? Because test takers tend to speak with perfection. They tend to speak, use big grammatical jargons. They tend to speak with the perfect accents, perfect UK or Canadian accent, or even Australian accent. That is not the case. You rather speak clearly, enough, and naturally. You tend to speak clearly and naturally, right? So if you are speaking, you don't speak while you're focusing on the accent or perfection. You speak clearly for your examiner to hear you, and then loud and clear, and also in your natural accent, right? And it's very important. You don't rush when you're speaking clearly and naturally, and you don't speak too slowly as well. So you avoid memorizing your answers, right? It sounds sometimes um, robotic if you're memorizing your answers. Maybe the question that the examiner will pose to you during the speaking test is a question you've heard before, right? And you've already memorized it. Or when it gets to the part two, when you're being given your cue card, you are being given a minute to prepare, and you are being given 2 minutes to, how do you call it, to speak. If you write everything you're going to say on the paper during the preparation stage within that minute, you're going to put yourself in a very big trouble or in a very tight corner. You'd rather state the point you're going to talk about on in relation to the topic on the cue card being given. That is during the part two of the speaking test. You state the points right on the sheet of paper. Then when you're speaking, you make sure that you tackle each and every point you've listed. And so if you're talking about social media and how that's affected us negatively and positively, you state the positive points, you state the negative points. Now, if you are talking, if you're speaking for 2 minutes, you make sure you tackle the positive aspect, then you come to negative aspect, and you then state your opinion and your conclusion. It is very important. So you don't memorize whatever you're going to say. You don't write everything on the sheet of paper and read out to the examiners. It sounds robotic, and most or many examiners do not like it. Right. Okay. And also, when you're speaking, you should flow natural. When you're being asked questions, you don't just say yes, I like music, right? Or or you tend to repeat whatever is being said in the question in your answer. So if you are being asked, do you like music or do you enjoy music? Yes, I enjoy classical music, especially because it helps me relax after work. Now, you are not giving straightforward answers here. You are trying to let the speaker know you can express yourself very well. And yes, of course, it should be natural and clear. And You should be able to use a wide range of vocabulary and grammar, right? So you practice common topics like hometown, studies, hobbies, current events. And if you're able to do this, you feel more confident when you hear similar ones in the raw test during the examination. And so if you're able to do this with a wide range of vocabulary, you don't repeat the same thing throughout when you're speaking or when you're being asked a question. It will help you a lot during the examination. Right. The next slide, let's look at the top band score strategies. That is not included in the slide here, but I'm still going to talk about it. The top band score strategies. So you see, you should know that you have to aim higher. You should aim higher when you're preparing for the IELTS, because if you don't aim higher and you rather aim for a mediocre band score or a very low band score, you tend to rather fall and you tend to fail, right? So let's say out of band out of 9 bands or out of band 9, you want a band 6 as your best band, or that's what you are preparing towards. You then tend to, if things don't go your way, you are falling, you fall to band 5 or band 4. But if you are working towards band 8 or band 9, and things doesn't I mean, the exam doesn't go your way, you fall to band 7 or band 6, right? So if you are preparing or if you are aiming for a band score, aim for a higher one, not a lower one. Now, you should know the scoring criteria, understand what examiners want in each question, understand what examiners want in writing, in speaking and listening, and in reading, right? And you have to stick to strict timing. You do not overspend on one question or task. And there's one thing you have to do. You have to practice consistently. Even if it's 1 hour a day or 30 minutes daily, it is better than 5 hour study sessions once a week, right? It's very important. You don't sit down one Sunday and decide to, okay, today I'm learning 5 hours non-stop. I'm dedicating the whole day for IELTS, and it's just that Sunday during the whole week. No, that is not really going to help. And but then this rather, I would say, depends on professionals. I'm saying this because if you are a professional in an international organization, right, and you work in the customer service department and you use English on a daily basis, you would have I mean, you have a higher chance of acing the IELTS than someone who, sorry to say, sells at the market, right? So if you use English on a daily basis, you you are in a way preparing yourself for the IELTS, but you still need to know the strategies, and you still know how to prepare yourself under strict examination conditions. I mean, on a strict examination timing, it is very important. And you also have to ask for feedback. It is very important you get yourself a coach, and that's why we are here. The IELTS Casa de Lengua Hub is always willing to assist you whenever you need an IELTS coach. We're going to take you through the the how do you call it, the strategies you should know before you go in to take the examination, whether it's computer based or paper based tests. You should then, if you are getting yourself a coach, you need to ask for feedback, right? If you ask for feedback, your teacher or your coach would help you improve much faster. And also, most importantly, you have to stay relaxed on the test day. Before the test day, you have to sleep well, eat well, and go in prepared, and do not panic during the examination. And so, finally, what I will have to say is, don't jump on any YouTube video you come across just because it's about IELTS. Use official IELTS websites like Casa de Lengua IELTS Hub, IDP, and the one from British Council. You can also join study groups or consider professional tutorial, or prep courses from us here at Cathedral and Wine. Also, you have to use a timer during your practice sessions, and do not ignore your health. You have to rest well before the examination day, and do not stress as much when you're preparing. Okay, that is all for now. If you have any questions, I'm here to all your questions. Okay, I would end here and I'll take in questions.
Please, the floor is open for questions. If you have any questions, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to respond to your questions. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm still on standby waiting for questions, right? So I can answer them for you. I'm still on standby. If there are no more questions and you wish to take a full prep course with us, we are always available to take you through. If there are no more questions, if you think this is just okay for you as a teaser, we always prepared and we're always willing to take you through the complete prep course. Even if it's 2 weeks, even if it's a month, if it's just 6 weeks prior to when you want to take the exam, we are more than ready to walk you through to a higher band score. And so we are glad you joined us. Our website is always active, cascadenova.com. We can visit whenever you want to check out our services. Our IELTS tab is always active. We are always accepting in candidates and test takers. So whenever you want to join us, you can walk in and we'll take you to a very higher bound score. Thank you so much for coming to our webinar. I would leave the platform to our managing director to give us a closing remarks if there are any.
Thank you so much for making time to join us. We are most grateful. Nana, so For now, I don't see any questions in the comment section, but I see Nana Opokuwari. He says, "Thank you. You are most welcome, Nana Opokuwari, and thank you so much for your massive support. We see the support you give to us on all our social media platforms. Thank you so much. We are most grateful." Yes, Nana Opokuwari says that there's clarity in the explanations, and so he doesn't have any questions at the moment. So thank you. Please feel free if you have questions. We are still around to answer your questions. But then feel free to visit our website www.casadelengua.com. www.casadelengua.com. So I have left the website in the comment section, so you can visit us anytime. You can make your enquiries. You can send us an email, and we are more than willing to revert as quickly as we see your messages. So, if there are no questions, I'd like to draw the curtains. So, as we wrap up, I would want you to remember, cracking the IELTS isn't about studying harder. Not at all. It's about studying smarter. And most people who pass exams are not the most intelligent, but they are the smartest people. So we encourage all of you to study smarter. You now have a clear roadmap. And so we are urging all of you to diagnose your level, target your weak points, and practice with purpose. Keep applying what you've learned today consistently, and that band score will no longer feel out of reach. Thank you so much for being part of this session, and we are wishing you all the success in your IELTS journey. We look forward to seeing you again in the next session, which is going to happen in the month of August. And so please constantly visit our social media handles, where we'll be dropping the dates for our new IELTS webinars. And then, as I said earlier, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to visit our website at www.casadelengua.com. We'll be more than happy to address any concerns you may have. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye bye.